Chapter 4. Leadership in Simulation. Introduction. Simulation in healthcare requires experienced, confident and well-educated professionals. Simulation educators often participate in various simulation education training programs, conferences and workshops, all of which enhance the learning and evaluation methods in the simulation laboratory. Experienced educators often pass along the bulk of simulation knowledge to novice educators through mentorship. Demonstration of leadership in the field includes development of future simulation educators. In addition to building the unique body of simulation knowledge, educators are responsible for understanding and disseminating best practices. Leadership in the field of simulation education includes innovation and collaboration. Activities that demonstrate leadership include publication, presentation and continued professional development, CPD. Sharing experiences in simulation and novel ideas builds the specialty and improves the delivery of simulation education on a large scale. As a leader in the field of simulation education, being a champion of this pedagogy is a principal responsibility. The use of simulation as a teaching learning strategy can be intimidating for experienced educators because many did not use high-fidelity simulation in their own educational process. Being an enthusiastic mentor to novice simulation educators will have a monumental impact on the specialty of simulation education. Knowledge acquisition without a formal training program in place. How do we get to specialty certification? Some excellent ways to improve subject knowledge include the following: attending workshops, working with an experienced individual or observing an experienced individual, and reading about simulation. More articles are appearing in reputable journals that instruct educators on how to set up and organize effective simulation scenarios. Faculty continuous professional development is stated in Chapter 2. The use of Patricia Benner's Novice to Expert Theory, 1982, has been proposed as a framework for faculty development in simulation education. Using Benner's stages, the Bay Area Simulation Collaboration Model describes the steps for instructor training. Novice. Technical training. May include training through the simulator manufacturer. Advanced beginner. Foundations of simulation methodology. May include written or online resources. Competent. Begins observation with experienced simulation educator. Collaborates on scenario development. Practices facilitating simulation with feedback from experienced simulation educator. Leads debriefing sessions with feedback. Receives advanced technical training. Receives discipline-specific training. Proficient. Facilitates simulations independently. Gains experience in simulation. Develops scenarios independently. Expert. Acts as experienced simulation educator and mentor for novice simulation educators. Demonstrates innovation in simulation. Faculty mentorship in a fashion very similar to designing learning outcomes. Mentorship for simulation educators begins with an assessment of learning style and current knowledge. There are a number of resources available in print and online that are useful in the advanced beginner stage of training. When the educator moves into the competent stage, the mentor provides a comfortable learning environment for the educator. Simulation should be a safe, supportive environment for the learners and the simulation educator. As with any new experience, novice simulation educators can become frustrated if they feel they do not have the tools or support necessary to be successful. Some things to consider include: begin with observation of one or more experienced simulation educators. Start new simulation educators in their content area comfort zone. Provide the new educator with a clear and concise template for the scenario. Allow new educators to engage at their own pace. Note that initial interaction may be as minimal as controlling the technical aspect of a high-fidelity simulator. Model positive behaviors with learners. Promote a support environment for educators and learners. Demonstrate effective debriefing techniques. Once new educators have reached the proficient level and are functioning independently, continue to serve as a resource for questions and support the development of innovation. As new simulation educators design and implement new scenarios, be sure to provide continuous guidance. As faculty grow into this role, there is a tendency to try to incorporate too much competency information into an experience. Emphasis on clear and concise learning outcomes and competencies is key. There should be between 3 and 5 outcomes and/or competencies for each scenario. Having more than 5 learning outcomes diminishes the experience for the learners and they may become overwhelmed. While transitioning to independence as a new simulation educator, it is easy to fall back onto teaching methods that are more familiar. Experienced clinical faculty who transition to the role of simulation educator tend to interact with the learners during the scenario. This is the method that they find most comfortable, and they may have difficulty allowing the learners to work independently without real-time guidance from the educator. As a mentor in simulation, it is important to continue to provide support. This includes the reassurance that the best learning experience develops by allowing the learners to work with minimal intervention from the educator. That said, one of the greatest challenges new simulation educators face when they begin to function independently is making modifications on the fly. What if the scenario does not go as planned? Anticipating and planning for the unexpected during simulation will improve the confidence of the new simulation educator. Consider whether the learners do not perform the required behaviors to progress to the next phase of the simulation. Make an error that would cause great harm to the patient. Kill the patient, hypothetically speaking. As a mentor, it is important to discuss the what-ifs with the new simulation educator. Although the goal is to provide all learners with a similar simulation experience, this is not always the case. Oftentimes the learner's behaviors will drive the scenario down an unexpected path. After facilitating a scenario multiple times, the educator can begin to identify the most common errors. Those errors can be anticipated and cues to refocus the learners can be developed to ensure psychological safety for the learners. There is evidence to suggest that unexpected death in simulation can negatively impact the learning experience. Some studies suggest that unless death is one of the learning objectives, the facilitator should not allow the simulator to die, but simulation can be an effective method for teaching proper bereavement interactions with families. Simulation can also be a valuable resource to teach learners how to rescue a patient who is deteriorating. Mentoring a new simulation educator should include the development of an escape plan for each scenario. These can include transfer to a higher level of care or intervention by a critical care team. Mentorship for new simulation faculty is a continuous process. As a certified simulation educator, the expectation regarding leadership and mentorship extends to all levels of simulation. This includes continuing to ensure the best practices and serving as a resource for educators, staff and learners. Resources for continuous professional development as a leader in simulation. Development of a formal training program may not be a feasible short-term goal. However, there are a number of training resources available for CPD, SSH, Annual Conference by the IMSH CAE Healthcare, Annual Conference by the HPSN National League for Nursing, NLN, Simulation Innovation Resource Center, CIRC, online training modules Drexel University's Certificate in Simulation, 1 week-long training program The Book Simulation and Nursing Education. From conceptualization to evaluation, the book Developing Successful Healthcare Education in Simulation Centers, the Consortium Model. The book Human Simulation for Nursing and Health Professions. Advocating for simulation. Many healthcare training facilities have incorporated simulation into their programs on some level. However, advocating for simulation means increasing the use of simulation in a curriculum and cultivating new simulation educators. Acceptance of increasing simulation activities may initially be met with some resistance. Some anticipated challenges include the following: time to prepare for simulation activities, lack of training, belief that it is not a useful teaching method, lack of space or equipment, complicated scheduling, lack of funding, lack of staffing, concerns about student engagement. As a champion for simulation integration, acknowledging and addressing these challenges will be imperative. Some strategies include the following: identify educators who are interested in being educated in simulation learning. Meet with content or course leaders to explore opportunities for simulation. Suggest simulation activities that do not require elaborate equipment or space. 4. Example Second Life simulations or use of standardized patients. Review course competencies and identify ways to incorporate simulation to meet the student learning outcomes. Advocate for simulation as a tool to increase learners' experience with diversity and high-risk, low-volume patient experiences. Summary: the responsibilities of being a certified simulation educator include continuous knowledge development and acquisition of the best practices of simulation. Furthermore, the dissemination of this knowledge serves to develop new simulation educators in the growing field of simulation. Serving as a champion for simulation means mentoring new faculty, promoting innovation in simulation, participating in building the specialty. Chapter 5: Special Learning Considerations in Simulation. Introduction. Diversity can be defined as the condition of having or being composed of different elements. Diversity related to simulation experiences can include any or all of the human attributes, in any combination, listed in Exhibit 5.1. The list is not inclusive of all diversity issues, but demonstrates some of the issues that an individual may have when entering a simulation learning experience. Exhibit 5.1. Diversity attributes. Diversity attributes can be exhibited by any of the humans or simulated humans, such as the patient including the family or the community, the learner, or the educator. The attributes can include any of the following elements: demographic, O age, O gender, sex, sexual preference, O ethnicity, O disability, experiential, O work-life experiences, for example, adult learners, informational, O educational background, O learning teaching styles, fundamental, O different beliefs and values, O relationships with others. Simulation experiences used for learning and evaluation must consider the diversity and experiences inherent in all the participants, because personal characteristics and past experiences are brought to the table within any learning environment. The realism created within a simulation environment or scenario can easily trigger personal reactions that are guided by the participants' diversity and/or experiences. Simulation is a social practice. It is defined as a contextual event in space and time, conducted for one or more purposes, in which people interact in a goal-oriented fashion with each other, with technical artifacts, the simulator, and with the environment, including relevant devices. This chapter briefly outlines several elements of human diversity and relates them to the simulation environment. The outcome of understanding diversity and experiences and gaining tolerance to human differences can be reached through learning and reflection, which are hallmarks of simulation. Diversity and learning styles. All learners come to the simulation, the skills laboratory, or the virtual environment with their own unique learning styles. A learning style refers to the ways and conditions under which learners most prefer to assimilate knowledge. The approach learners take to accomplish different tasks is also important. A learning style is an approach to learning that works for the individual learner. Learners may have more than one learning style. The four most common learning styles are defined by the acronym VARK. V is for visual, A is for auditory, R is for read/write, and K is for kinesthetic. Visual or spatial learners. These learners learn best through what they see. Pictures, diagrams, flow charts, timelines, maps and demonstrations enhance their ability to learn. A good learning assignment for a visual learner might involve concept mapping using computers and graphics. These learners may also be called graphic, G, learners. It is important to note that visual learners do not usually care to learn by viewing movies, videos or PowerPoint presentations. Oral or auditory learners. These learners prefer to learn through what is heard or spoken. They learn best from lectures, tapes, tutorials, group discussions, speaking, web chats, emails, smartphones, and talking things through out loud. By talking about a topic, these learners are able to process the given information. Reading or writing learners. These learners prefer to have the information to be learned displayed as written words. They prefer text-based input and output in all of its forms. Many academics have a preference for this style of learning. These learners are often fond of PowerPoint presentations, the internet, lists, dictionaries, thesauruses, quotations, or anything else featuring words. Kinesthetic or active learners. These learners use their and sense of touch to enhance learning while engaged in physical activity. They like to think about issues while working out or exercising. They like to participate, play games, role play, act and model experiences. They appreciate demonstrations, simulations, videos and movies of real things, as well as case studies, practice sessions, and applications. Multimodal/mixture, M, learners. These learners preferred to learn via two or more styles of learning or using a variety of modes. They like information to be context-specific or might choose a single mode to suit a certain occasion or situation. They like to gather information from each mode and often have a deeper and broader understanding of topics. Table 5.1 on page 50 displays the characteristics of these alternative types of learning styles identified by various learning specialists. Kolb's learning styles. Kolb describes experiential learning as a type of learning in which the student is actively engaged in the learning process. Kolb also discusses learning styles in relation to experiential learning. The following are Kolb's four learning styles. 1. Diverging. This type of learner likes to work in groups and generate ideas. Students are fine with feedback and reflecting on the activities learned. This learning style uses concrete experiences and reflective observation. 2. Assimilating. This type of learner prefers to read information, be presented with lectures, and then analyze topics. This learning style is generated by learners who prefer abstract conceptualization and reflective observation. 3. Converging. This type of learner likes to put ideas to practical application. The style of learning is generated from those who abstract, conceptualize, and actively experiment. 4. Accommodating. This type of learner enjoys hands-on work in teams to complete projects. This style of learning is derived from people who use concrete experiences and active experimentation. Generational learners. In addition to learning styles, the era or context in which learners were born and reared will affect how they view receiving and retaining information. Just as homogeneous groups of healthcare learners are obsolete, having learners who fall within one generation in higher education is also not a reality in higher education. Characteristic learning attributes have been noted in different generational learners, but of course, as with any other categorization, individual differences and preferences may override any stereotypical attribute. Table 5.2 on page 51 shows the attributes of generational learners. Diversity in teaching styles of healthcare educators. Writers have emphasized the importance of the teacher's role in simulation as well as the facilitator-learner relationship. Students' perception of teaching effectiveness increases when the faculty use simulation appropriately. The method by which the teacher designs the simulation experience and the educational practices used to organize and deliver the experience will affect the quality of learning. The teaching style used during the experience is another variable in the success of a simulation experience. Teaching styles permeate the development and orchestration of the simulation experience and have been classified by many different methods. Simulation healthcare educators rarely ascribe to just one teaching style. Most educators use a variety of styles, even within a single simulation session. Using a mixed style approach can appeal to the variety of learning styles and improve learning outcomes. Reflecting on the type of style used encourages self-understanding the most and may serve to improve effectiveness. Individual teaching styles involve teaching behaviors and are noteworthy because behaviors have a direct effect on the simulation teaching learning environment. The next table, 5.3, describes some of the ways teaching styles are categorized and what experts say are good teaching behaviors and personality traits of educators. Quirk's classification of teaching styles. Assertive communication is usually content-specific and the educator drives the information home. Suggestive, the educator uses experiences to describe a concept and then requests that the learners seek more information on the subject. Collaborative, the educator uses skills to promote problem-solving and a higher level of thinking in learners. Facilitative, the educator challenges the learners to reflect and use effective learning, ask ethical questions, and demonstrate skills in interpersonal relationships and professional behaviors. Kelly's teaching effectiveness. Kelly studied learners' perceptions of teaching effectiveness and found that teaching effectiveness has three main important attributes. The first of these, educator knowledge, was rated the most important and consists of four separate domains, as shown in Figure 5.1. House, Chassis and Spahn's teaching behaviors provide examples of the following behaviors and their effects on learners. Making eye contact can encourage learner participation. Positive facial expressions that elicit a positive learner response, such as head nodding, can assist learners in feeling comfortable, whereas negative gestures, such as frowning, can discourage learners' participation in class. Vocal tone is very important and can easily portray underlying feelings and encourage or discourage learner participation. Choose positive characteristics for educators. Choose research on teachers' identified characteristics that students rated positively. These include that a teacher values learning, exhibits a caring relationship, provides learner independence, facilitate questioning, tries different approaches, and accepts differences among learners. Hicks and Burkus describe the attributes of master teachers, which include clear communication, positive role modeling, professionalism demonstrated in lifelong learning and scholarship, reflective practice in making adjustments for improvement, and use of philosophical, epistemological and ontological influences in their practice of education. Story and Butts discuss teaching delivery in the frame of the 4 C's. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator/MBTI measures Jung's 16 personality types by classifying them into 4 bipolar dimensions. The educator's personality also affects instruction. The 4 bipolar dimensions are extroversion, introversion, sensing, intuition, thinking, feeling, and judgment, perception. Silver, Hansen and Strong developed a teaching style inventory, TSI, based on Jung's theory of psychological types or personality types. It tests educators' propensity for one of these 4 types: sensing thinking, sensing feeling, intuitive thinking, and intuitive feeling. Looking at all the teaching styles and the preferred attributes of educators is helpful in reflective assessment because there are trends in all the studies listed above. Attributes can be summed up as keeping the student central in the learning environment and communicating clearly during the entire learning experience. The positive attributes identified are congruent with positive simulation learning experiences. Knowing your teaching style and understanding your personality style and how these two personal aspects mix in the simulation or skills environment can be very enlightening. Reflecting on these attributes can assist healthcare educators in providing learners with excellent environments in which to facilitate their knowledge acquisition. Tip: many students learn the content used for simulation learning experiences best through formal delivery and informal practice discussion. Emotional needs of learners. Develop scenarios may depict situations that learners can relate to on an emotional level. This phenomenon may be due to the student experiencing a recent loss of a loved one or because the situation is similar to what happened to them or to someone they know or a family member. Pre-briefing should include a description of what is going to take place, and the simulation educator should request any student who is uncomfortable with the situation notify them so other arrangements can be made for the student to achieve the learning outcomes. Culturally diverse learners. Each person has an individual culture constructed by unique social determinants. Culture encompasses an individual's values, attitudes, perceptions, interpersonal needs, roles, and cognitive styles. Cultural humility is needed by faculty to fully appreciate the experience of students. It is important for simulation educators to recognize that cultural diversity can influence learning ability and needs and how learning is perceived by individuals' perceptions. Perceptions of individuals must be considered during any educational session. Despite the growing diversity of the nation, the healthcare workforce continues to be underrepresented by minorities. Moreover, culturally diverse learners face certain barriers that may impinge on their ability to achieve success in college. The most common barriers are lack of ethnically diverse faculty, finances, academic preparation, available role models, academic support, family support, and peer support. Many times, the needs of diverse or underrepresented students include the following: personal needs, such as lack of finances, time issues, family responsibilities and obligations, and difficulties related to language and communication. Academic needs, such as large or heavy workload, language needs, difficulty reading and understanding assignments, prejudice due to their accents, and verbal communication barriers, and/or cultural needs, expectations related to assertiveness and cultural norms, lack of diverse role models, and difficulty with communication. An important issue among culturally diverse learners is their level of knowledge of the English language, which if inadequate can be problematic. Barriers to progressing in healthcare programs, once accepted, may also exist among English as a second language learners. However, the following tips have been put forth: using short and simple sentences, being direct when stating information, and using common vocabulary. Effective diversity on simulation scenarios. Culturally and linguistically diverse, CALD, learners often have different learning needs when related to clinical and simulation experiences. There remains a lack of evidence on how best to assist CALD students in order to succeed in healthcare programs. Some research found that the attributes needed by the faculty were flexibility with assessments, modifying teaching styles according to learning needs, providing appropriate orientation, creating a welcoming environment, providing consistency with resource allocation, and providing appropriate faculty education. Another study completed a literature review about the challenges of international and migrant healthcare students. The investigators searched 10 databases to examine international and migrant students' mental health, well-being, and academic outcomes, and found that research did not address gender identification. Challenges were identified in the literature related to wearing a hijab and being a foreign-born male nurse and viewing nursing as a low-status profession. Additionally, research is needed to identify educational strategies that increase the chance of success of international and migrant students. Simulation has been suggested as a positive intervention. It has been demonstrated to increase cultural confidence and to overcome student and faculty language barriers. Another study discusses simulation lifesavers, that is, manipulations of a scenario when unexpected situations occur. Unexpected situations are listed in the following, and are preempted many times by the diversity of the simulation learners. The following are the causes of unexpected situations: differences in cultural understanding, comprehensiveness of the scenario that is unclear to participants due to poor instructions or ambiguous clues during the scenario, inability to accept the scenario due to participants' inexperience or distractibility, unrealistic difficulty level of the scenario which does not match the competency of the participants, participants in the scenario not following the procedural steps and producing unexpected actions, or participants changing the intended scenario to a familiar scenario that is also plausible. When unexpected occurrences take place during a scenario common, debriefing may be affected. The lifesavers are the anticipated actions that may be needed during a scenario. Scenario lifesavers can be used to adapt to the situation in order to restore the scenario to its original form. Lifesavers can be used to mitigate cultural differences. Those scenario life-saving actions are identified before the scenario and can come from within the scenario or the simulation room itself by altering the patient or providing hints, or it can come from outside the scenario by using the director's voice to clarify, stop, or explain the scenario. Some life-saving techniques are commonly used in many scenarios either to provide the participants with time or to emphasize missed clues, such as the patient asking learners to repeat information. Other lifesavers must be specific to the scenario, such as altering vital signs more drastically to gain learners' attention. Simulation as a teaching learning methodology is an excellent platform for students to understand, integrate, and reflect on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Cultural awareness can be used as a simulation framework, and healthcare students and scenario assessments can easily be based on the community's needs assessment. Developing partnerships with diverse patient groups and using diverse standardized patients can enhance student sensitivity. Learners and learning disabilities. Learning disabilities are the most common type of disability found on college campuses. Although increasing numbers of individuals with physical or affective disabilities are attending higher educational institutions and many disabilities are known and accommodated for before the learner enters college, other learners with learning disabilities begin college without their disability having been detected. In healthcare education, these disabilities are often noted when significant differences are noticed between a learner's classroom and simulation or clinical performance. Often, a learner may perform well in the simulation or clinical environment, but may be unable to demonstrate the same ability, skills, and competency in the classroom. Healthcare educators should always require learners they suspect as having a learning disability to the appropriate counselors or office for accommodations for assistance. Learners with documented disabilities are entitled to the same access to education as traditional learners. An Office of Academic Services must be available to provide learners with reasonable accommodations and support services. Accommodations must be made for students with learning disabilities in accordance with the ADA. It is important for educators to be aware of learners with physical disabilities, such as those with a documented or apparent physical limitation, substance abuse, chemical or alcohol impairments, and/or mental health problems. Many college students use extended time to complete testing in college, and it is often related to having attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD, and to taking science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM, courses, which are part of the curricula of healthcare students. When simulation is used as an evaluative tool and not learning, an extended time to complete the assessment may be appropriate. Belongingness. Learners who are marginalized are less likely to succeed, so simulation and virtual experiences must be inclusive, providing a valued role for each learner. Belongingness is conceptually related to motivation, and students who do not feel they belong may lose motivation to study and prepare for simulation. Additionally, lack of belongingness can have adverse physical consequences on students. Simulation learning as a social practice. A study describes social meaning in terms of frames that are perceived by the individual about the reality that they are experiencing. Frames help individuals understand what is happening at the moment and make sense of the situation. The study breaks experiences down into two types of frames: primary frames, which assist the individual to make sense out of the current situation, and modulation frames, which bring in the individual's perception of the world and therefore include individual differences such as the previously mentioned diversity issues. These frames must be addressed to ensure positive learning experiences. Socialization during simulation. A study provided results of a classic grounded study with nursing learners that discusses socialization during simulation. 5 phases of negotiating the role of the profession. Professional nurses were identified and are shown on Table 5.5. The socialization aspects of simulation cannot be overlooked. Simulation is a powerful mechanism that provides learning environments in all 3 domains: cognitive, psychomotor, and affective, or sometimes stated as knowledge, skills, and attitudes. Chapter 6, Interprofessional Simulation. History of Interprofessional Education, or IPE. The recognized and often used acronym IPE, Interprofessional Education, has a variety of meanings and interpretations. The most recognized definition, adapted from the Center for the Advancement of Interprofessional Education, CIPE, in the United Kingdom and the World Health Organization, WHO, states that IPE occurs when 2 or more professions learn with, about, and from each other to enable effective collaboration and improve health outcomes. The National Center for Interprofessional Practice and Education, Nexus, further enhanced the IPE acronym to include interprofessional practice and education that emphasizes support of healthcare professionals, healthcare workers, residents, students, families, patients, and communities to learn together every day to enhance collaboration and improve health outcomes while also reducing costs. For many, learning through some type of active participation, experience, and reflection, experiential learning, provides a fresh lens in viewing the educational process. To simulate real-life environments as the backdrop can be even more powerful. Thus, to practice together better, it is imperative that students can collaborate with and learn from one another in a safe educational environment. Background: the national recommendations to redesign the health education system to embrace the strengths of multidisciplinary skill sets are certainly not novel, nor were they developed out of a need to comply with the changes derived from healthcare reform. In fact, the origin of this challenge can be traced to the Flexner Report of 1910, and a call for healthcare educational transformations to include IPE initiatives has been a recurrent theme threaded through the following landmark reports of the Institute of Medicine, IOM, over the past half-century. Educating for the health team to err is human. Building a safer health system, crossing the quality chasm. A new health system for the 21st century. Unfortunately, although these reports provided the premise that IPE-based programs would decrease preventable medical errors through increased multidisciplinary team collaboration and communication and improved quality care delivery and patient safety outcomes, these challenges yielded slim results. Years of escalating governmental spending, rising healthcare costs, numbers of uninsured and underinsured Americans, and fear of an individual's inability to afford basic healthcare spawned a unified consensus among governmental and private foundations to transform both the healthcare and health education system, strongly emphasizing the need for IPE in the United States. Rethinking the IPE's call to action initiatives was postulated in 3 well-respected and nationally recognized Sentinel reports: The Future of Nursing, Leading Change, Advancing Health Framework for Action on Interprofessional Education and Collaborative Practice, Health Professionals for a New Century, Transforming Education to Strengthen Health Systems in an Interdependent World. Many years after the initial IOM's call to action for collaboration among healthcare professionals, 6 of the major national healthcare organizations convened an expert panel to produce documents containing the foundation of IPE: team-based competencies, building a shared foundation for education and clinical practice, and core competencies for interprofessional collaborative practice. Defined 4 measurable core competency domains and 38 subcompetencies for curriculum foundation for IPE and practice in all healthcare realms. Values and ethics, VE, roles and responsibilities, RR, interprofessional communication/communication competency, IC/CC, teams and teamwork, TT. See Exhibit 6.1 for further definitions. Since the development of these competencies, IPE has been gaining popularity and recognition across the country. Increasing accreditation body endorsement, new IPE-specific faculty development and training program offerings, increased dissemination and promotion of IPE competencies, and the opening of the first National Center for Interprofessional Education and Practice, Nexus, are only a few of the many indications that IPE is the future of healthcare education. In 2016, the IPEC board, with an additional representation from 9 new professions, reconvened to reaffirm the original competencies, ground the competency model firmly under the singular domain of interprofessional collaboration, and broaden the competencies to better integrate population health approaches across the health and partner professions. This action will enhance collaboration for improving both individual care and population health outcomes. This has resulted in the development of a Josiah Macy Jr. Foundation-funded IPEC portal, a collection of peer-reviewed educational resources and materials supporting IPE instruction, and the redesign of competencies that reflect the inclusion of population health competencies. Exhibit 6.1 IPEC 2016 Update. Reaffirm the dissemination and impact of the 2011 core competencies. Reorganize the competencies within the single domain of interprofessional collaboration, instead of domains within IPE. Attempt to achieve the triple aim: improve the patient experience of care, improve the health of populations, and reduce the per capita cost of health care, by expanding the interprofessional competencies with a population health focus. General interprofessional education competencies. The competencies for IPE and health professions were developed by the IPEC, an expert panel that included the American Association of Colleges of Nursing, the American Association of Colleges of Osteopathic Medicine, the American Association of Colleges of Pharmacy, the American Dental Education Association, the Association of American Medical Colleges, and the Association of Schools of Public Health. The overarching goal of this collaboration was to develop individual-level core interprofessional competencies, originally developed with an authentic patient practice focus. These definitions are also foundational to IPE in simulated environments. The IPEC defined interprofessional competencies in healthcare as the integrated enactment of knowledge, skills and values/attitudes that define working together across the professions, with other healthcare workers, and with patients, along with families and communities as appropriate to improve health outcomes in specific care contexts. The collaborative identified that core IPE competencies were needed in order to coordinate and direct the curricular revisions needed in health professions, including pedagogy and assessment strategies to promote success, to lay the foundation for a teaching curriculum in IPE that was connected to the development of students' lifelong learning, to foster discussion regarding the divide between authentic patient care demands and IPE core competencies, to identify opportunities to integrate IPE content with current accreditation expectations, to provide a framework of common IPE competencies that would eventually link to a common set of accreditation standards, to provide licensing and credentialing bodies with potential testing content, and to promote the conduct of evaluation and research in this area to support outcomes. The competencies are based on a single, unifying concept, interprofessionality, which was originally defined as part of the work by Health Canada. It refers not merely to practicing in the same room or on the same team, but to a deliberate practice of professionals to reflect and develop an integrated practice model focused on addressing needs at the level of patient/family or population. The key elements include constant knowledge sharing between professionals and an emphasis on active patient participation. This is a paradigm shift from traditional care teams and educational models in most health professions. Thus, the development of core IPE competencies to describe the unique attributes of IPE practice was needed. The intent of the publication and competencies was to remain general in nature to provide for individual profession and institutional flexibility. In 2016, as part of the competencies revisions, the 4 domains listed earlier, VE, RR, IC, TT, now reside under the single domain of interprofessional collaboration. Exhibit 6.2 demonstrates the IPE core competencies from the IPEC. Of note, in June 2021, the IPEC has begun work to revise the 2016 competencies once again. The core competencies have been crucial to moving the IPE forward. The revisions, to be completed in 2023, will include a cyclical review on common definitions for competence, competency and competency framework, and ensure that this framework accurately reflects any changes in research, policy, and practice. Exhibit 6.2 Core Competencies for Interprofessional Collaborative Practice from the Interprofessional Education Collaborative. VE. Work with individuals of other professions to maintain a climate of mutual respect and shared values. RR. Use the knowledge of one's own role and those of other professions to appropriately assess and address the healthcare needs of the patients and to promote and advance the health of populations. CC. Communicate with patients, families, communities, and professionals in health and other fields in a responsive and responsible manner that supports a team approach to the promotion and maintenance of health and the prevention treatment of disease. TT. Apply relationship-building values and the principles of team dynamics to perform effectively in different team roles to plan, deliver, and evaluate patient/population-centered care and population health programs and programs that are safe, timely, effective, and equitable. Each of the 4 core competencies or domains is further delineated into specific IPE competencies that are outlined in the following sections. Detailed values and ethics competencies. This domain moves beyond the individual's professional ethics and focuses on the development of interprofessional ethics. VE 1. Place the interests of patients and populations at the center of the IPE healthcare delivery and population health programs and policies, with the goal of promoting health and health equity across the lifespan. VE 2. Respect the dignity and privacy of patients while maintaining confidentiality in the delivery of team-based care. VE 3. Embrace the cultural diversity and individual differences that characterize patients, populations, and the health team. VE 4. Respect the unique cultures, values, roles/responsibilities, and expertise of other health professions and the impact these factors can have on health outcomes. VE 5. Work in cooperation with those who receive care, those who provide care, and those who contribute to or support the delivery of prevention and health service programs. Phase 6. Develop a trusting relationship with patients, families, and other team members. Phase 7. Demonstrate high standards of ethical conduct and quality of care in one's contribution to team-based care. Phase 8. Manage ethical dilemmas specific to interprofessional patient/population-centered care situations. Phase 9. Act with honesty and integrity in relationships with patients, families, communities, and other team members. Phase 10. Maintain competence in one's own profession appropriate to the scope of practice. Detailed roles and responsibilities. Competencies. The interaction between understanding your own and others' RR within an interprofessional team while providing patient-centered or population-focused care is delineated in their specific competencies. Each profession's RR is delineated within a legal scope of practice that may be significantly influenced by the practice environment, region, or location. However, within the appropriate scope of practice, RR may vary depending on the situation. The following are specific RR subcompetencies. RR1. Communicate one's RR clearly to patients, families, community members, and other professions. RR2. Recognize one's limitations in skills, knowledge, and abilities. RR3. Engage diverse professionals who complement one's own professional expertise, as well as associated resources, to develop strategies to meet specific healthcare needs of patients and populations. RR4. Explain the RR of other care providers and how the team works together to provide care, promote health, and prevent disease. RR5. Use the full scope of knowledge, skills, and abilities of professionals from health and other fields to provide care that is timely, safe, effective, and equitable. RR6. Communicate with team members to clarify each member's responsibility in executing the components of a treatment plan or public health intervention. RR7. Forge interdependent relationships with other professions within and outside the health system to improve care and advance learning. RR8. Engage in continuous professional and interprofessional development to enhance team performance and collaboration. RR9. Use unique and complementary abilities of all members of the team to optimize health and patient care. RR10. Describe how professionals in health and other fields can collaborate and integrate clinical care and public health interventions to optimize population health. Detailed interprofessional communication competencies. These subcompetencies expound on the critical nature of effective verbal, written, and health literacy communication to promote interprofessional collaboration. This includes using a shared language that is known to all team members. The following is a list of positive communication techniques. CC1. Choose effective communication tools and techniques, including information systems and communication technologies, to facilitate discussions and interactions that enhance team function. CC2. Communicate information with patients, families, community members, and health team members in a form that is understandable, avoiding discipline-specific terminology when possible. CC3. Express one's knowledge and opinions to team members involved in patient care and population health improvement with confidence, clarity, and respect, working to ensure mutual understanding of information and treatment and care decisions, and population health programs and policies. CC4. Listen actively and encourage ideas and opinions of other team members. CC5. Give timely, sensitive, instructive feedback to others about their performance on the team, responding respectfully as a team member to feedback from others. CC6. Use respectful language appropriate for a given demanding situation, crucial conversation, or interprofessional conflict. CC7. Recognize how one's own uniqueness, experience level, expertise, culture, power, and hierarchy within the health team contributes to effective communication, conflict resolution, and positive interprofessional relationships. CC8. Communicate the importance of teamwork in patient-centered care and population health programs and policies. Simulation is a well-matched modality to bring together teams in a predictable, reproducible, learning environment with well-designed cases that promotes learning from, with, and about one another. However, the challenges of creating successful EPAY experiences can be daunting. An integrative review of outcomes of EPAY simulation in nursing education revealed that, while interest and progress are sustained, more rigorous design, implementation, and analysis of EPAY interventions are needed. West et al. Described similar barriers in their survey of 16 U.S. medical schools participating in EPAY. Foronda et al. examined IC and healthcare in an integrative review and concluded that the next steps should include adding courses on patient safety, employing interprofessional patient handoff tools, practicing in simulation, and using virtual technologies to bring together the professions. In a narrative synthesis of barriers and facilitators of EPAY simulation, 3 primary themes were identified: characteristics of learning process, learning outcomes, and interprofessional dynamics. These reviews highlight the need for ongoing work in SBE to facilitate a successful EPAY. Simulation Teaching Tip 6.1 outlines the pearls and pitfalls for the simulationist. Simulation Teaching Tip 6.1 Pearls and Pitfalls Implementing Interprofessional Simulation-Based Education. Pearls. Facilitators of interprofessional education, IPE, simulations include the following: creating interprofessional design work teams that reflect the learning teams striving to balance interprofessional learning outcomes with individual professional responsibilities and domains of learning. One simulation may not meet all those goals. Transparent collaboration among the faculty, designers focused on interest and outcomes, focusing on psychological safety of all participants throughout the learning process using multiple modalities and considering virtual collaboration. Accepting incremental improvement in the EPAY program, which can lead to critical learning for the design team. Perfection should not get in the way of progress. Pitfalls. The enormity of bringing healthcare providers together to practice without risk to patients and to improve patient care is systematically challenging. The practical issues of scheduling and time commitment may be some of the most significant barriers to successful implementation. Other barriers include the following: schedule and resource coordination, lack of resource and financial support from leadership, interprofessional simulation design and debriefing teams not adequately trained, multiple interests of different professions not initially negotiated, realism of the scenarios not effective for all disciplines for optimal engagement, failure to evaluate outcomes. Different definitions/perceptions of EPAY among team members, fear of relinquishing discipline, hierarchical status suggested, enabling frames for EPAY educator engagement. Striving for good, not perfection. Messy is okay, planning for multiple contingencies for scheduling, staying focused on the interests of the learners, understanding that multiple perspectives make us better clinicians and educators. Detailed teams and teamwork competencies. The last sub-competencies address the concepts of effective team members and team behaviors that may influence, positively or negatively, the team's overall effectiveness. TT1. Describe the process of team development and the roles and practices of effective teams. TT2. Develop consensus on the ethical principles to guide all aspects of teamwork. TT3. Engage health and other professionals in shared patient-centered and population-focused problem solving. TT4. Integrate the knowledge and experience of health and other professions to inform health and care decisions, while respecting patient and community values and priorities/preferences for care. TT5. Apply leadership practices that support collaborative practice and team effectiveness. TT6. Engage self and others to constructively manage disagreements about values, roles, goals, and actions that arise among health and other professionals and with patients, families, and community members. TT7. Share accountability with other professions, patients, and communities for outcomes relevant to prevention and healthcare. TT8. Reflect on individual and team performance for individual as well as team performance improvement. TT9. Use process improvement strategies to increase the effectiveness of interprofessional teamwork and team-based services, programs, and policies. TT10. Use available evidence to inform effective teamwork and team-based practices. TT11. Perform effectively on teams and in different team roles in a variety of settings. Chapter 7, Ethical, Legal and Regulatory Implications in Healthcare Simulation. As healthcare professionals, our teams are held accountable for ethical, professional, and organizational policies and processes to maintain a safe healthcare environment. Healthcare education teams have utilized simulation modalities to improve patient safety, enhance professional performance, reduce errors, and improve overall patient outcomes. Simulation education creates a safe simulated environment for learners to gain knowledge, skills, and abilities without causing harm to our patients. Simulation education must not only focus on creating a safe learning environment to protect patients from future harm, but should also protect our learners. Establishing trust in the learner-educator relationship is crucial to implementing successful simulation experiences. This chapter explores the importance of ethical, legal, and regulatory implications in healthcare simulation education. including the role of simulation in the development of learners' personal professional integrity. History. What thoughts come to mind when you hear the word coronavirus? Do you think of the flu, a viral infection that infects our communities historically in winter months? Or do you think of COVID-19, a worldwide pandemic that spread rapidly and has led to thousands of deaths? As the virus began to spread, researchers accelerated standard timelines and practices to develop an effective vaccine. According to Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine, typical vaccine development can take 5 to 10 years or longer to assess the vaccine's safety and efficacy in clinical trials. The current vaccines for COVID-19 were developed and approved for emergency use authorization by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, in less than a year. This response was necessitated by the need to speed up vaccine research, which was opposed by the need for protection of research subjects and which led some to ponder this ethical dilemma. Are you familiar with the name Henrietta Lacks? In 1951, Ms. Lacks's cells were used without her permission or knowledge. The cells were used by the scientific community to develop cloning, gene mapping, and other historical research. Ethical dilemmas created in the scientific community have led to changes in research involving human subjects to prevent ethical and moral harm. A code of ethics was developed by the American Educational Research Association, AERA, in 2011. This code governs the ethical standards and principles for researchers working in education. The importance of preparation for ethical issues that arise in healthcare cannot be underestimated. Without adequate ethical preparation, providers may not serve as adequate advocates for patients, become burnt out, or leave the profession. Creating a safe environment. The Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, AHRQ, recognizes simulation as an educational tool used to enhance skills and allow healthcare providers to test new clinical procedures in a safe learning environment. The Healthcare Simulation Dictionary defines a safe learning environment as a learning environment where it is verified that learners feel physically and psychologically safe to act, interact, and make decisions in a simulation environment. Providing a safe environment fosters open communication, respect, and support for all participants. For simulation to be credible, it must be developed on a strong foundation of safety and trust between the learners and the educators. Globally, simulation centers are developing standards and guidelines to create a safe environment, focusing on protecting learners' ethical, legal, and regulatory rights. A review of simulation centers within universities and healthcare institutions found specific guidelines that address ethical standards, including the following: Codes of Conduct and Confidentiality Guidelines, Learner Evaluation Processes, Recording and Photo Use, Consent Forms and Release Contracts. Codes of Conduct and Confidential Guidelines. Codes of Conduct and Confidential Guidelines developed by simulation centers stress the importance of abiding by the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, HIPAA, regulations during simulation scenarios. Simulation experiences are to be considered as real-life events. Learners are expected to act in a professional manner, to be prepared to participate, not to discuss the information outside of the simulation center. Simulation Teaching Tip 7.1. Many simulation centers ask learners to sign an agreement letter prior to beginning coursework, agreeing to the confidentiality of the simulation experience, thereby creating an ethical environment for all learners. Sharing of information outside the simulation environment could impede participants' confidentiality or affect future participants' learning opportunities. The International Nursing Association for Clinical Simulation and Learnings, INACSLS, revised healthcare simulation standards of best practice. Professional integrity highlights the need for professional integrity in simulation. Professional integrity refers to the conduct and ethical behaviors of all involved in the simulation experience. Mindfulness of each profession's code of ethics builds the foundation of respect for the interprofessional team and needs to be maintained by everyone who is involved in simulation-based experiences. Learner evaluations. How learners are evaluated has received a great deal of interest from simulation educators and learners alike. Formative evaluation occurs during the learning activity or program and focuses on the development and progression toward a goal of achieving specific outcomes. The purpose of formative evaluation is to promote self-assessment, identify gaps in knowledge, skills, and attitudes, and provide ongoing constructive feedback for individual and/or group improvement. Formative evaluation may be used at the end of a learning period or other defined time frame, or can be used for competency determination. Summative evaluation focuses on meeting the final objectives or measurement of outcomes at a clear moment in time, such as at the end of a program of study. Summative evaluations are used to award a grade, or degree, or to certify competency, using a standardized criterion. Another evaluation is known as a high-stakes evaluation, which has consequences for the learner based on the outcome of the simulation. When evaluating learners, they must be informed as to whether they are participating in a formative, summative, or high-stakes simulation experience. When developing scenarios, healthcare simulation educators should determine the goals/purpose of the simulation and match them with the appropriate evaluation type. Simulation researchers are developing reliable and valid instruments to assist educators with student evaluations. The INACSL Healthcare Simulation Standards of Best Practice Evaluation of Learning and Performance outlines the details associated with participants' evaluation for formative, summative, and high-stakes evaluation. Recording and photo use. One of the essential components of simulation activities is the implementation of pre-briefing to establish educational standards and create psychologically safe environments for learners. Recording of simulation experiences is widely used in healthcare simulation education. In formative simulation scenarios, recording provides an opportunity for learners to watch the video to self-reflect on their performance or for the educators to highlight a particular noteworthy behavior following the simulation session during debriefing. Use of a recording recalls precise moments and interactions during the simulation to focus on what went well and what needs improvement, allowing for critical reflection. In summative cases, recording provides an opportunity to return to the scenario for accurate grading, allows additional reviewers to observe the scenario, and provides for a re-evaluation in case of a grading discrepancy. Recording consents and releases should emphasize the following: how long the materials will be stored, purpose of the recording, that participants have no right to compensation. Simulation teaching tip 7.2 Developing a standard of practice or a policy about expectations regarding video recording and photography taking will allow learners, standardized patients, and healthcare simulation educators to decide whether they can meet the learning outcomes or expectations of the experience. Simulation centers have been challenged with concerns regarding religious objections to being recorded, and in some instances standardized patients, SPs, who are members of the Screen Actors Guild who may decline to be recorded or photographed. Professional development through simulation. Part of the simulation process includes the development of individual learners' understanding of their profession's value system. Therefore, initially, learners and the healthcare simulation educator must come to a common understanding of what the group's professional value system entails. In the broadest sense, professionalism includes requirements for practitioners to be honest and responsible, which ultimately can lead to a sense of professional integrity. Together, learners and educators share responsibility for the learning activities associated within the simulation environment. Both must participate in preparation for simulation, as well as in identifying knowledge gaps and strategizing to address these gaps. If these activities are integrated throughout the curriculum and constructed based on the profession's code of conduct, this process can lead to an enhanced moral reasoning process. If learners can develop their own personal and social responsibility within the simulated clinical environment, they should be more able to reflect and analyze situations to assist in clinical decision-making. A complicating factor associated with the development and defining of norms for ethical behavior is the globalization of cultures. As the world becomes more inclusive, clearly identified norms of professionalism become more difficult due to differences in cultural values and practices. Educators play a key role in the process of developing learners' moral and ethical reasoning processes. There are varieties of ways that moral and ethical situations can be woven into simulation activities, including simulations with overriding issues that have these components embedded in them. Scenarios focusing on specifically complex healthcare issues can include the following: care of vulnerable populations, disclosure of adverse events, do not resuscitate or allow natural death orders, end-of-life care, genetic and reproductive issues, informed consent, patient confidentiality. Such simulations can generate critical thinking, enhance communication, and allow for consideration of complex ethical issues from various participants. Participation in a mock ethics committee or in groups focusing on sensitive ethical experiences where learners assume various roles as committee, family members, or healthcare providers is another example of activities that can teach participants about communication-related issues for both medical personnel and families. In addition, microethical situations, those involving decisions that are more routine and everyday and include things such as poor infection control practices, unsafe or borderline medication administration practices, and/or breaches in confidentiality, can be embedded in a variety of simulation scenarios. Discussion of these issues as part of other simulation scenarios can strengthen overall ethical decision-making. Summary simulation experiences were created to improve patient safety, enhance professional performance, reduce errors, and improve overall patient outcomes. However, it is extremely important to remember that protection of human rights applies to learners as well. When developing simulation experiences, not only should there be an emphasis on objectives, methods, and outcomes, but healthcare simulation educators must also consider the importance of ethical, legal, and regulatory concerns when developing these experiences.